buy a new car and a year later try to sell that car, you're not going to be able to sell the car for as much as you purchased it for, because something that is called depreciation has taken place. It's worth less money. And it's the same with construction equipment. Depreciation takes place. So a piece of equipment cannot sit simply idle. A construction company is always going to either earn money with their equipment or lose money with their equipment. If a piece of equipment is sitting idle, doing nothing, it is losing money for the company. So what we want to do is try to utilize equipment as much as possible. One of the ways we do that is by putting equipment where we need it. Something that's happened in too many situations is where a supervisor or manager or superintendent, a foreman, wants a piece of equipment on his job in case he needs it. What that means is oftentimes it sits on his job, not being used, while the company has another job across town where they're renting equipment that they need. Whereas that rental would not have been necessary if they only transported the equipment they had to the other job and kept track of it. Another way to keep equipment from sitting idle is when subcontractors working on a job need to use the equipment. What we do is lease equipment. Say, for example, a shipment shows up on the job. The subcontractor doesn't have a forklift to unload the shipment. Well, arrangements can be made beforehand that if the subcontractor wants to use the general contractor's forklift to unload any shipments that come in, there would be a charge of $35 or $50 an hour with a minimum charge of somewhere around $35 or $50. And then, when the shipment came in, the subcontractor could then rent the general contractor's equipment. So rather than sitting idle, the equipment would be being used, making money rather than losing money. Or if a subcontractor needs something like a trencher or needs a scissor lift or something like this that they don't have, the general contractor in some situations can rent or lease their equipment to the subcontractor. Therefore, instead of the equipment sitting idle, the equipment could be making money. Because you see, that is the point of equipment management. We want to offset any depreciation that is taking place. We don't want to let other people use our equipment at no cost. That's what we want to avoid. When subcontractors bid jobs, they figure on using their own equipment when doing the job. So there is no reason that a general contractor should have to loan his equipment to any other contractor or subcontractor at no cost, because there's always a cost, even if it's just the depreciation. And who's paying that cost is the question that we must ask ourselves. Now let's look into maintenance. Maintenance is the second, and probably, I would say, the most important part of equipment management. The way we maintain a vehicle has a direct relationship on the depreciation of that vehicle. If we maintain the vehicle very well, it's going to depreciate yet less. And what is maintenance? Is it simply the fuel that the vehicle uses? No. The rubber that is being used on the tires. Also, the oil. We have to change the oil every so many hours. Everything it takes to maintain the equipment is considered equipment maintenance. Each piece of equipment should have a logbook. The purpose of a logbook is to record exactly such maintenance. Every time a problem is found with the equipment, it should be noted inside the logbook with the date and the hours of the machine, or miles, depending upon which type of machine is being used. When a repair is done to the machine, it should be noted. When preventative maintenance is done to a machine, it should be noted. What is preventative maintenance? Let's talk about that for a moment. Preventative maintenance is that type of maintenance that will prevent repair. For example, greasing the fittings will prevent future repairs. Checking the coolant, checking the oil. These types of things will prevent repairs. That's called preventative maintenance. Some may say, logbook. It's such a hassle. Why mess with a logbook? I just want to get on the equipment and do my job. Well, let's look at one situation, for example. Say, I'm doing a walk-around inspection of the vehicle, which, by the way, we should do each time before we start operating a vehicle. We should do a walk-around inspection, looking for leaks, looking for things that might be protruding, coming out of the tire, such as bolts or nails. And I'm doing my walk-around inspection, and I notice a leak down by one of the wheels, and it looks like it could be brake fluid. So I check the brake fluid, and sure enough, the brake fluid's low. So I fill up the brake fluid, figure we'll call a mechanic later. But if I forget to record it in the logbook, do you know what might happen? After using the equipment and I go on break, or I go to lunch, or I go back to doing what I had been doing before, and somebody comes from the office with a truck, and they load up a piece of equipment, they take it off to another job. Now the other job, the operator, he does our quick walk-around inspection, doesn't see what we saw, takes a quick look at the logbook, sees that everything's fine, and then gets in the piece of equipment, he starts operating it, and the brakes fail on it. Had that been recorded in the logbook, that would not have happened. Brakes failing, he could run into the building, do damage to the equipment, do damage to the building, and all that could have been prevented by what? By preventative maintenance. By recording what we do in the logbook. So what else should we check? Check the fluids. Certain things have to be checked, should at least be checked weekly. Such things as tire pressure, coolant. When checking the coolant, we should use a gauge, such as this. This type of gauge will tell us what the mix of antifreeze to water is. This is important. You might say, why is that important in tropical areas or in the south area of the United States, where we don't have to worry about freezes so much? It's still important because antifreeze will prevent overheating as well. And we want to prevent an engine from overheating. These are workhorses, and these engines are made to work hard. But they're not made to be overheated and ran hot. And things like that can cause damage, as we'll see later on. So maintenance is a very, very big part of construction equipment cost, and a part that can be controlled. Let's take a look at the next one. Repairs. Construction repairs. Now, many of these repairs can be small if we have preventative maintenance and we can catch things early. A good operator will have a trained ear, and when he hears that the machine isn't running exactly right, he'll have it looked at. He can tell his supervisor or superintendent or the manager or whoever it might be. Now, the equipment operator says, I don't care. It's not my equipment, it's the boss's equipment. Boss will pay for it, I don't have to pay for it. Very poor attitude. Very poor attitude. The more a piece of equipment can make, the more profits the company will make. And it's in everybody's interest to have the profits of the company higher. And why is that, you might say? Well, the next time you come up for a raise, if the company has been making more money, they're going to have more money to give for a raise. And you may say, I'm at the top of the scale already. Every raise that I get will be 2% or Their price is their price, and perhaps you can negotiate that price with them, but it's not going to have anything to do with the piece of equipment that you had before. But there's where you're wrong. Because oftentimes equipment can be traded in. And the trade-in value is going to have a direct relationship with the way that we maintained that piece of equipment. Or if we purchase a new piece of equipment, oftentimes later we will sell or auction off the old piece, and the way we maintained it will have a direct relationship on the price that we get for it, thus offsetting the price of the new piece of equipment that we purchased. Therefore, our really focus here is on maintenance. Maintenance affects depreciation. Maintenance affects repairs, the cost that we pay for repairs, and the amount that we do. And maintenance can affect replacement value. Have you ever asked yourself something? Why is an equipment operator, somebody that operates a piece of equipment like this, paid more than somebody that operates a piece of equipment like this? Is it that bosses just like to pay backhoe operators or dozer operators or forklift operators, whatever piece of equipment it might be? Is it that they just like to pay those operators more money? Is it because equipment operators are just nicer people? Is that the reason? No, my friends, that's not the reason at all. Now take a look at these two pieces of equipment. They both basically do the same thing, right? This digs holes, and this digs holes. This moves dirt, and this moves dirt. The reason that a company owner can justify paying an equipment operator that runs a backhoe more money than he pays a laborer that uses a shovel, the reason the equipment operator makes more is because the equipment operator can accomplish more work. This backhoe can move more dirt than the shovel. It can do more work faster and dig holes faster. And that's why the equipment operator can make more money. But take a look at equipment maintenance and look at the costs. What is the cost of depreciation on a shovel like this? It's rather small because of the overall cost of the shovels. And what about maintenance? There's not too much maintenance to a shovel. And what about repairs? Perhaps the handle will get broken and have to be replaced. Pretty insignificant. And the replacement value of a shovel, while we do want to avoid having to replace shovels and we do want to take care of our hand tools, the replacement value is rather small compared to the replacement value of a piece of equipment like this. Therefore, when somebody is graduated or promoted from operating one of these to operating one of these, the responsibility change is enormous. The operator of this equipment must have a completely different attitude about equipment management than the operator of this piece of equipment. The replacement cost of a piece of equipment like this could be as much as the operator's yearly salary, or very close to it. Whereas there is nobody that earns so little that the replacement of this would be comparable to his yearly salary. Thus, we must have an entire new attitude when we take on the responsibility of being equipment operators. I hope that each of us will be better operators